It's Mike Klinzing here with my co-host Jason
It's a
Sunkle
new
tonight.
era, Mike. It's a new era.
A new era begins. Mike is retired officially today. And well, I guess today I still work, so it's still September 30th as we speak right now. But as of 3:30 this afternoon, officially retired, age 55. Time to move on to greener pastures, figure out what's next. More basketball, more podcasting, full-time job, part-time job. I don't know what it's going to be. We'll see. We'll see.
You're done with those kids, though. That's what I'm gonna say.
Hey, I had a clap out. I gave,
Oh, you
I would
got they
say
clapped you out
90%.
today.
Nah. Oh yeah, 90. I probably got 90% of my students. I probably gave them a hug on my way out the door, or at least on my way through the clap out. So
Didn't have no
it
fights today, Mike.
was.
No fights today, Mike. We're good.
I almost had one of the very last class of kids coming in the door as we were coming inside from being out on the playground. We almost had one, but we didn't quite pull it off. So
Well, that's good. That's
no,
good.
it's
They
all
were
good. I'm
they
glad.
resisted temptation in honor of you, Mike.
That's right. Look, I'm glad to be done, and we will see what the next chapter holds. As for tonight, we know it holds some NBA podcasting, and we're going to do some Eastern Conference over unders. Jason has been so kind as to pull up the FanDuel current over under numbers. So we're going to go through those, and Jason and I will talk about our decisions to go over or under on each team, and we'll talk a little bit about the rosters. And this will be a semi preview, the first of our series of preview episodes for this 25-26 NBA season. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, I don't know how you feel, Mike. And I mean, I have not been consuming as many podcasts as I typically do because I just don't have as much time as I typically do. Because of I'm on the opposite side of the mic spectrum with work, and taking more on. I feel the least prepared for the NBA season as as far as how our team's looking, like what's going on with teams. Obviously training camp started like yesterday or today, depending. Some some started at different times because of when they've got some overseas games or something. So I just feel like I'm not like it's crazy because tomorrow's when people are listening to this, it's going to be October 1st, but I'm not there for in the basketball mindset, and maybe it'll be easy easier to transition to the basketball mindset if the Guardians lose tomorrow. Okay, but me, I don't know. I don't feel as prepared or all knowing and I think maybe it's because also the Cavs haven't really had much of a roster change, other than a few small blips and things. And maybe it's just because it's been so quiet. I don't know. What are your thoughts before we dive into the Eastern Conference, Mike?
I definitely think it's been quiet. There hasn't been a lot of really big news for a long time. Obviously, we had the Van Vliet injury. We've had the Kawhi saga with the Clippers. We've had skinny Joel Embiid. We've had Al Horford signing with the Warriors. We've had talk about whether or not which rookies from, well, I guess not rookies, but which guys are going to sign their rookie extensions. So that's the 3-year guys. But there hasn't really been a whole lot of exciting transactions or interesting things going on in the league that have shifted the impact. You had the De'Aaron Fox injury in San Antonio that he's not going to be with the team at the beginning of the season. And
Wait! I
so
didn't know. I
there's
don't
been
know about.
some,
I didn't know about this. What happened to him?
I believe it's a, oh man, I'm going to have to look it up while we're talking here.
Oh, I look at
Okay. So I forget exactly. I want to say it was a, no, I don't know. We better
hamstring,
just look at
hamstring,
it. There you go. There you
hamstring,
go. All
hamstring.
right. So
Opener in doubt. It does not say he's for sure out, but it says opener in doubt.
during media day, he said he was pretty sure that he wasn't going to be ready for the regular season. So that obviously impacts San Antonio, which we're not going to really talk about tonight. But I do think that the reason why maybe you don't feel as prepared is there just hasn't been a whole lot of news. And to your point about the Cavs, I think it's been I don't want to say boring offseason, but since they signed or since they traded Okoro for Lonzo and I guess the Max Strus injury, there hasn't been a lot of intrigue as to what the Cleveland Cavaliers
Thomas Bryant
are
doesn't
going to look
excite you?
like. Thomas Bryant did not really move the needle for me in any meaningful way. I don't think that he's going to affect my choice of over or under for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I do think that, as we've talked about a lot this summer, for the Cavs, and we'll get to it when we talk about their over under. But basically, it feels like the regular season for the Cavs this year is going to be relatively meaningless, and the success or failure of this season is going to come down to how this team performs in the playoffs. And so I think just trying to lead up into your preseason interest level, Cavs intrigue is really going to peak in April and May. It's not going to be peaking here in October and November as far as what this team's going to do. Because I think, barring another major injury, there's no way this team doesn't finish at worst in the top 3 in the Eastern Conference. And quite honestly, if they don't win the whole thing in terms of the regular season of the East, it's probably going to be a disappointment. And regardless of where they finish, it's still going to come down to the playoffs. And so I think that's maybe a little bit of where your, I don't know if apathy is the right word, or just, again, kind of waiting to see what's going to happen, because there hasn't been a ton of big news.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess let's just dive right in, Mike. And I've got, I figured we'll go with this in alphabetical order. Okay, and
Perfect.
we'll just dive in based on that. So the first team, Atlanta Hawks, their FanDuel over under is 47.5, Mike. This is to me 47.5 seems high because they're banking a lot on Kristaps Porzingis being healthy, and I just don't believe it. And that's why I'm going to go under on this one.
Okay. Fair. So Atlanta has probably gotten more buzz in the Eastern Conference than just about any other team for the moves that they made in the offseason. They make the trade with the Pelicans, where they get back New Orleans's unprotected first round pick next year in exchange for New Orleans moving up to take what's the kid's name? Derek McQueen from Maryland. And that move was universally applauded on behalf of the Hawks and universally panned on behalf of the Pelicans. So you had that. You had them picking up Nickeil Alexander-Walker. You have them picking up Kristaps Porzingis. You have them picking up Luke Kennard. And so the Hawks have made some pretty significant roster changes, some pretty significant, I would say, additions to their team. Obviously, last year they get Dyson Daniels in the DeJounte Murray trade, and he turns out to be the most improved player. Probably had the best season as a perimeter defender of anybody in the league, like doubled everyone in terms of deflections. And I think there's a feel that he could continue to improve as an offensive player. Jalen Johnson, who got hurt last season and missed the majority of the year, looked like he was on a trajectory of becoming a potential all-star caliber player coming back off that knee injury this year. Obviously, the guy that everybody's waiting to see, is he going to sign an extension at some point with the Hawks? Trae Young has been the straw that stirs the drink for Atlanta for years. What that means positively or negatively, I guess we've gone back and forth on Trae Young on this pod, just as many people have, in terms of, is Trae Young a winning player? Is he not a winning player? What's his ceiling? What's the ceiling of a team that Trae Young is the best player of? And I think the jury is still out on all that. There's a lot to look at with Atlanta. There's a lot of unknowns because of all the additions. And if you just look at the additions one by one, you say, well, that has to make getting Alexander Walker has to make them better. Getting Porzingis, if he's healthy, has to make them better. Getting back Jalen Johnson has to make them better. They certainly, if you look top to bottom at their roster compared to what their roster looked like last year, I don't think there's any question that the roster is better. And yet at the same time, I'm just not a believer in. I just find it hard to believe that Atlanta's going to win 48 games. So I'm going to take the under with you on the Atlanta Hawks.
Oh, that's a guaranteed over now. All right. All right. The next up, the Boston Celtics, 41.5. Okay, so obviously Al Horford's gone. Jason Tatum out for the season. There's been rumors of possible trades of other people. I just don't see them completely blowing this up. I just don't see it. They won the championship 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago? Okay. I don't think they're going to completely blow us up. Al Horford, I mean, geez, I can't believe that guy's still in the league. Like, that's crazy when you think about it. Like, he was on the Hawks forever ago. And he was on the Boston Celtics. Then he left the Boston Celtics. I don't even remember. Was he in Oklahoma City, Memphis? Where was he? I don't even remember where he was for a season.
He
and
went
now
to
he's
Oklahoma City, but he was the Philly too. But he was with Philly.
Oh, he was Philly. Then he went back to Boston, and now he's going out west, like to the Golden State.
Golden State.
You saw Seth Curry side with Golden State tonight too, right?
I did not see that, but I guess not surprising.
So, anyways, so here's what I'm gonna say. I'm looking at the rest of the Eastern Conference. Okay, I think we can agree that Atlanta's better, probably better than Boston, if they're healthy. Cleveland is better than Boston. You know, Milwaukee, I think, is better than Boston. Orlando and the Knicks are better than Boston. And then I think we can make an argument, and we can have further discussions. I'm not ready to say Detroit is better than Austin. Their over-under is greater than Boston's. I'm not ready to say it yet. You're ready to say it?
Okay. Oh yeah, Detroit's better than Boston this year.
Okay, what happens if Cade's out? Because he's been injury prone. If Cade Cunningham is not on this team, Detroit's not better than them, right?
Okay, well, what happens to anybody's best if your best player if Jason Tatum isn't out, Boston's not, their over under isn't 41.5, I can tell you that.
Okay, but my point is this. I think there's four teams to me that are clearly better than Boston, and then we can make arguments. So 41.5, I don't know. I think I'm going to go, maybe this is just the pessimist in me. I'm going to go over. I think they'll get 42, 43 wins. That's what I'm going with.
Okay. So the Boston Celtics, here's their center rotation. How do you like this center rotation?
Luke Cornett, baby.
Luka Garza. Luke Cornett's in San Antonio, man.
Oh, he's not.
Really are. Man. You're really off your game. So here's your Boston Celtics starters. You pick which guy you want starting at center. Do you like Luka Garza starting for you at the center spot?
Well, who are the other options?
You happy with that? Neemias Queta.
I like that
him.
guy. I like
him starting at center. Okay, all right. Amon Williams.
Okay, so
Chris Boucher, Chris Boucher. You're sliding Chris Boucher over to center. Maybe play a little small ball.
Okay, so you're going under, Mike. You're going under.
You like Anthony Simon's defense? You like that?
I mean, I don't know. So you're going under. Just make your pick, Mike. Got you. You're going under.
Under, man. Under. Jaylen Brown is a primary playmaker. Under. I'm going under. This team is you want to talk about a team that's one injury away from being like the depths of the Eastern Conference. If Jaylen Brown or Derek White go down for this team, they might not win 35 games. Under for the Boston Celtics.
Okay. All right. Talk about the lowest over-under total in the Eastern Conference. The Brooklyn Nets, 20.5. So here's what Why don't you go first on this one, Mike? You go for it.
Okay. So the Brooklyn Nets, I know last year that whatever the number was, I think it was like 19 and a half. And I think we both went like way, way, way under, if I remember correctly. And they ended up going over. So the Nets have 5 number one draft choices that they brought in, who are all guys that are they all play different positions, different sizes, but they're all kind of guys who like to have the ball in their hands and aren't really great shooters. That doesn't seem like a great roster construction. You still have Cam Thomas on this team who's going to put up big numbers. You got Michael Porter Jr., who's going to shoot a lot of threes. You've got Nick Claxton still as a member of the Brooklyn Nets.
The fact
Haywood
that you have to bring
Highsmith
up Nick
comes over from
Claxton is
Miami.
the fact that you have to bring up Nick Claxton as a marquee player is a sign in itself, Mike.
Nick, how much money do you think Nick Claxton? Guess how much money Nick Claxton is making this season?
He's probably making like 13 or 14 million. Something stupid.
He's making 25, buddy. He's making
Oh,
25.
my
Nick
God.
Claxton's laughing all the way to the bank at your expense. This team's going to be bad. What was the number again? 21 and
20
a
and
half?
a half. 20 and a half.
20 and a half.
I mean, Michael Porter Jr. his injury history has been terrible. Like, what if he's out for like an extended period of time?
Okay, there's a lot of horrendous teams in the East. I'm going over for Brooklyn.
Oh, okay. I'm going over too. I was trying to talk you into an under. All right.
Okay.
I'm going over just because last year we got burned. Last year we got burned by them. We said they were going to be terrible, and then they ended up winning games. So
they have a good coach. Jordy Fernandez is a good coach. A good coach is not going to let them just throw. They're going to win games that they shouldn't. They're going to win games they shouldn't because Jordy Fernandez is a good coach. So I think they end up in the low 20s, but I say they get over 20. It's hard to lose. It's hard to win only 20 games in the NBA. You got to be really, really bad. And this team could be, but I'm going to say they're going to go over that 20 and a half.
All right. The next up is the Charlotte Hornets. Their over-under is 26 and a half, Mike. When I sit here and think about the Charlotte Hornets, I think of LaMelo. Bridges is still on this team, right? He's not been traded yet.
Yes.
He's not signed it. He hasn't been traded yet.
He is not.
I think this has to be over. Because once you've laid it out, the Eastern Conference is going to be bad. Okay, and we look at these teams. Like, I'm pretty sure Charlotte, because they're in the same division, Brooklyn 4 times. Like, I got to imagine they're going to win 3 out of the 4 of those games. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay. I think Miami's going to be bad. I think Washington's clearly going to be bad. I'm not buying the Philly special with Embiid. I'm not buying that nonsense. They're probably going to be bad. Chicago's going to be bad. I don't know if I said them already. When I look at these teams, they're going to be bad. Indy's going to be bad. I mean, they lost their 2 best players from last year, right? Miles Turner and Tyrese Halliburton's out for the year. So, like, how good is Indy going to be? Although I did listen to Carlisle's episode on the Zach Lowe pod, right? It was Zach Lowe. He was on. Carlisle was on there, right? Anyways,
yes.
I'm not. These teams are just bad, and I just think that Charlotte is going to pull out 27 wins. They'll probably win a stupid game against the Cavs too, because they always seemingly do. So I'm going over.
Okay. If you liked the Boston Celtics center rotation, you are going to be absolutely in love with the Charlotte Hornets center rotation. Can I give you the Charlotte Hornets depth chart right now at the center position?
Is Cody Zeller still on this team?
Cody Zeller and his bald head are not still on the Charlotte Hornets, but You do have one of the Plumlee brothers. Do you know which
Oh,
Plumlee you have?
the Zeller brothers, the Plumlee brothers, the tall white guys. I got them mixed up again. Darn it.
Yep. You got them mixed up. But we have Mason Plumlee.
Oh, he's the better of
35
them.
years old at this point. He is. He was the better of the Plumlees. There's no doubt. And if you don't like Mason Plumlee starting at center, can I offer you Ryan Kalkbrenner
Who?
from Creighton?
Who?
Ryan Kalkbrenner? He's currently number 2 on the Hornets depth chart. And can I offer you the third string center for the Charlotte Hornets?
Sure.
There's currently no one listed as a third center. So
I got
you're
a
looking at
chance.
splitting minutes between Plumlee. You got a chance between Plumlee and Kalkbrenner. They're going to have that center position man. So I'm guessing that Charlotte's going to play small a lot. I mean, look, the
I mean, but
Charlotte
wait,
Hornets, it comes
stop.
down to
Can I just ask you a question? Like when we're talking about
sure.
centers, who in the Eastern Conference is a dominant center other than like that we're worried about these teams playing against? Okay, so
Joel
Jared
Embiid.
Allen. Oh, get out of here. Jared Allen's inability to shoot anything outside of maybe he'll have a dunk factory on them. Okay, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I think you're putting too much stock in the center position in the current NBA, Mike. I think you might be putting a little too much stock in.
I'm not basing my choices on the center rotation. However, when I pull up the roster and I see that your center rotation is Plumlee and Kalkbrenner, I have to at least point out that it may not be the strength of your roster at this point. Look, with Charlotte, it comes down to, do you believe in any way, shape, or form that A, LaMelo Ball can stay healthy, and that B, he's anything more than just a sideshow TikTok, YouTube basketball star? Can LaMelo Ball play basketball in a winning environment, and does the skill that he has translate in any way to a cohesive team that is well coached, that is attempting to play winning basketball on the offensive end of the floor and the defensive end of the floor? I have no idea whether he can or he can't. And there's been limited evidence that he can stay healthy. There's been limited evidence that he is anything more than just a sideshow curiosity who comes up with a lot of highlight film moments. And yet at the same time, we all know why LaMelo is tantalizing, because of his size, his ability to pass the ball, his ability to make difficult shots off the dribble. Those are all skills that, for someone at his position, at his age, at his size, are very, very unique skills. And then the second guy, Brandon Miller, probably is a more traditional basketball player, but still a guy with tremendous length, a guy who has all the skills that you could want. He can shoot it, he can put it on the floor. Probably still needs to work on his playmaking, but Brandon Miller is potentially a multi-time All-Star going forward in his career. But I just don't know that if your team is being built around LaMelo Ball, that you're going to be anything more than what they've been for the last few years, which is an occasionally entertaining team that just hasn't figured out how to win. And they added Knipple in the draft, who should, as a shooter and a guy that's playing off Miller and LaMelo, should be a good fit there. You mentioned Miles Bridges, who, despite his off-court stuff, has been an effective player when he's been available. They picked up Colin Sexton in the Yusuf Nurkic trade, and Sexton, although he has limitations, he's a guy who competes and plays hard, and I think can contribute on a winning team. I just don't think this team is deep enough, and I think it comes down to, how much do you believe in LaMelo Ball? And for me, every season, I think my faith in ever getting to see the best version of LaMelo gets further and further away in my line of vision. And so I'm going to go under on the Charlotte
Okay.
Hornets.
All right. The Chicago Bulls. I can't wait to hear you say the center rotation for the Chicago Bulls.
You went over on Charlotte, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Over.
All right.
Over.
All right. Chicago Bulls.
Chicago Bulls over under
You want me to go
32
first?
and a
Or
half.
are you 32 and a half? Are you going first or am I?
I'll let you go first on the Chicago Bulls. That way I can go first on Cleveland. Go ahead.
Okay, sounds like a plan. You want the Chicago Bulls starting? You want their center rotation?
Sure. Well, Vucevic is still on their team, right?
Yeah, Gucci Mane. All right, Gucci Mane is the starting center, and then as far as guys listed at the position of center on their roster, there is no backup center. So you have to assume that
Another team
somebody
there
who's
has no
playing
center.
power
See,
forward.
this is looking good. It's looking great.
Zach Collins. Zach Collins is on the Bulls roster. So Zach Collins, we're going to count him as your backup center. And you got the
Until he gets
Vooch,
injured.
Zach Collins. Yeah, that that's not a good it's not a good combination at the center position. So I think Chicago is kind of in, I don't know. They have Kobe White's a good player, primarily offense, not great defensively. Josh Giddey, who has been discussed by us a lot, but also you I've listened to so many different pods talking about Giddey, and the Giddey conversation is interesting because he's obviously a multi-dimensional, very skilled player who can do a lot of things, has great size, and yet just because of his lack of shooting and because he's somewhat of a defensive liability, the question becomes, if you're giving the ball to Josh Giddey as sort of your primary ball handler creator, what is the ceiling on your team? And if Josh Giddey's not in that role, because he's not that great of a catch and shoot shooter, and because he doesn't bring anything on the defensive end of the floor, he's kind of then your secondary playmaker if you're giving the ball to somebody else. And how much value does he have there? I look at this, I look at this Bulls roster, and I see Buzelis, who was a rookie last year. I see Giddey. I see Kobe White. And then after that, I just see at best mediocrity. I don't even know who I'm excited about to watch in this team. Kevin Herter, by the way, is on the Bulls, which I don't know if I would have known that 5 minutes ago. And this roster just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Maybe Giddey and Kobe White are enough to get you in the Eastern Conference 32 and a half wins, but I'm going to go under on the Chicago Bulls. Ugh, no.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. You said a lot of what I like. I just don't feel great about this roster. You know, they just give Donovan a contract extension too, Mike. Didn't they just give Donovan a contract extension? I feel like they did. But
they gave Giddey just got an extension. I think he got like 3 years, 75 million. So he got like 25 million a year. So he's up in Nick's. He's getting Nick Claxton money.
I think he's a better player than Nick Claxton.
He is a much better player than Nick Claxton.
So anyways,
it's neither here nor there.
Yeah. So yeah, I have them going under. All right. Next up, Mike. The Cleveland Cavaliers over under is 56.5. This is the highest in the Eastern Conference. They have the best odds to win the East right now as well. 56.5. So here's what I'm going to say. I think they should go over this number. Just because the Eastern Conference is devoid of talent. And they should be better than all those teams. But I'm like surprisingly hesitating to say over. Listen, we've highlighted that they really didn't make any. They got Lonzo, Larry Nance Jr. is back on the team. Thomas Bryant they signed. What other what guard did they sign? They signed someone else too last week.
Killian Hayes. Killian Hayes, baby.
Killian Hayes. Oh yeah, Kevin O'Connor is probably so excited. Right, it's Kevin O'Connor that loves him. Right, that's right. Anyways,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So Strus is going to be out for an extended period of time. We know that there's going to be a period of time that Donovan Mitchell is going to be out. We know that there's a period of time that Darius Garland is going to get poked in the eye or something, and he's going to be out, or his toe. We don't even know his toe situation,
He's
right?
already out at the beginning of the season. So who knows? Yeah, who
Yeah.
knows when he's coming back? I'd say he's probably, I'm guessing he's going to miss a month, if I had to guess.
So 56.5 is, I think they're close to that number, either on the high side and the low side. But I'm going to be a pessimist here, Mike. I think they also understand that the end game is the playoffs, and they want to have their players in the mode, but at the same time healthy. So if they have to rest people because they're concerned about injury, they're not going to hesitate, because it's no question they're making. It would be, if they're not a top 4 seed, they would be a complete catastrophe, even if people are out. Mobley looks jacked. Mitchell's going to be good when he plays. Hopefully Lonzo Ball is competent when he's playing and doesn't get injured. Another guy who's got a terrible injury history. But I'm going to go under. I'm thinking they're going to be like at the 50, like 52, 53, 54 wins. I hope they're over, but something tells me that we are going to be, there's going to be some growing pains and sadness about some stuff. There's going to be some stretches that are not super pretty as they try to figure this stuff out. That's just my prediction.
I like this team's roster. When you look at it and you think about the depth, as I'm looking through the rosters that we've seen so far, and I look at guys on the Cavs who I'm like, oh, if that guy started getting minutes, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world that ever happened. If Lonzo's playing minutes, if DeAndre Hunter, who's probably going to start without Max Strus, is playing a lot of minutes, if Sam Merrill plays a lot of minutes, if Larry Nance Jr. has to play a lot of minutes, if Craig Porter Jr. has to play a lot of minutes, if Jalen Tyson has to play a lot of minutes, there's just a lot of guys who I'm not sure how many minutes they're going to get, but if suddenly they had to play 25 minutes a game amongst their other starters, I wouldn't feel that bad about some of those guys. So I think that in the regular season, the depth combined with just the fact that there's going to be so many easy wins to be had in the Eastern Conference that I think it's going to be almost impossible for this team not to win 57 games. Clearly, what would make it impossible is if you have Evan Mobley or Donovan Mitchell go down for an extended period of time, then yeah, it probably makes it tough. But that being said, I still think that the depth on this roster and just how terrible the Eastern Conference is leads me to take the Cavs for the over. I still have no idea what that means for them as a playoff team and whether or not they can get to the NBA Finals through this weakened Eastern Conference. But I do think that there's a pretty good chance that once again they finish with the best record in the East, the number 1 seed. And I find it hard to believe that if you're the number 1 seed in this terrible Eastern Conference, that you're only going to win 55 or 56 games. So I'm taking over for the Cavs.
Okay. The Detroit Pistons. 46.5 is their over-under. That means FanDuel has them 1 game less win total than Atlanta.
What was the number again?
46.5.
46.5. Got it.
Detroit, to me, if everything goes well, should be good. And I know I already said, but I'm not convinced. Just not. 47 wins for them. Once again, I know we're talking about the East and it's devoid of talent. But when I look at Detroit and I see talk about they have to play 30 games against Western Conference teams. And I think if I sit here and say, who in the West can Detroit beat? they can't beat Denver. They can't beat the Clip. I don't think they beat the Clippers. I don't think they beat the Lakers. I don't think they beat the um the Nuggets, the Thunder, the Wolves. I'm probably Golden State's probably a question. Golden State, they can't. I don't think they beat Golden State. Um, I don't. I don't know if they beat Dallas as it's currently constructed. Like I just think 46.5 seems too high for me. I'm going under on Detroit. That's what I'm saying. I think they're gonna stand out in the East because the East is so bad. But I think they have to play us a bunch of times and we should beat them. So I'm just going under 46.5.
So Detroit last year obviously made a huge leap, and they lost Malik Beasley to his unfortunate legal situation. They lost Tim Hardaway to Denver, and in their place, you brought in Karis LeVert and Duncan Robinson. Now, Malik Beasley had a career year last year, and Tim Hardaway was up and down, but generally up for Detroit most of the year. And can LeVert and Robinson replace those two guys? I would say probably yes. They could be 5% better. They could be 5% worse, but I think generally speaking, that's kind of a wash. Although again, Malik Beasley had a record-setting year from 3 point from 3 point territory. I don't know that either one of those guys will necessarily be able to match that, but I do think collectively that LeVert and Robinson are comparable to Beasley and Hardaway Jr. And then you look at the rest of Detroit's roster, and like they have 9 guys. Last year, Ausar Thompson didn't come back till the end of the year. You're presumably going to have him healthy for the whole season. Isaiah Stewart, Beef Stew, was out during the playoffs. He's coming back, and not that he's great, but he certainly is a physical presence and a guy that you can plug into when we're talking about the center rotation. Isaiah Stewart is a guy that you don't mind having out on the floor. You got Jaden Ivey coming back from his injury, and at the beginning of last season, before he got hurt, it looked like maybe he had turned the corner as both a 3-point shooter, but just kind of getting his feet under him and figuring out what the NBA game was all about, not being coached by Monty Williams, who for some reason wanted to bury Jaden Ivey. So I guess it remains to be seen whether Ivey's shooting at the beginning of last season was real or not from three. But if it is, then you got to figure, well, what's his fit and how does it work next to Cade? But if he can shoot it, I think it'll work. And you still have Tobias Harris there. You got Ron Holland now in his second year. This team to me goes 9 pretty solid NBA players deep. And Cade made a big jump last year, and I would expect that jump to continue. And I think in the East, to me, I think Detroit has a pretty good case for being fourth best team in the Eastern Conference. I think it's them and Milwaukee battling for 4 or 5. But I think Detroit, I think they go over 46.5. 47, 48 seems reasonable. So I'm going over for the Pistons.
Okay. The Indiana Pacers, and I don't know why I wrote the Indianapolis Pacers. The Indiana Pacers, their over-under is 37.5. Under. They've lost their two best players. I like Rick Carlisle a lot, but I don't see it. If this team wins 33 games, I'm going to be completely flabbergasted. I'm out. I'm out on the Indiana Pacers this year, and I feel bad because they had quite the season last year. They had quite the story last year, and I just don't see how this team wins games. Their two best players are gone. Like that would be like the Cavs taking
maybe they're third best. Maybe they're third best. Maybe Siakam's your second best player. I'd say Siakam is probably a better player than Miles Turner. But I get your point.
But if
Certainly two of
Siakam's
their
your
top
1A,
three.
though, that's not good news. I'm not a believer.
Siakam was
I'm
really
going
good in
on.
the playoffs last year. I'm not a Siakam believer either. I think your thought process is right. You're looking
Well,
at a starting backcourt
Siakam
of.
had other pieces. Siakam had other pieces and parts to play off of, though. If he's
I
the
agree.
guy driving the engine, it's just like your analogy for Jaylen Brown, right? Like if he's the one driving the
Agreed.
engine, I'm not wanting to get in the car. Okay, I'm just saying. Like I'm not hopping in that car willingly. So I'm going under
Yeah,
for the Indiana Pacers.
you got a Nembhard Mathurin backcourt. I think a lot of it does come down to how much do you believe in Siakam as the number one guy. We watched that a little bit in Toronto in the intervening years after Kawhi left. I don't know. And look, I think Pascal Siakam is a good player. I don't think he's, as you said, your 1A. And this team does have some interesting depth, but when you subtract Halliburton, who's kind of the engine that makes everything go, and your entire style of play is based around the way Halliburton can push the ball and kick it ahead and his unselfishness and everything that goes along with the style that we saw all throughout the playoffs last spring. When you take that driver out of the car, it just feels like, is Andrew Nembhard or Benedict Mathurin going to be able to do that same thing that Halliburton was able to do throughout the playoffs? I don't think so. And so I don't think that the depth of their bench and the roster that they have is enough to overcome the loss of Turner, but most importantly, Halliburton, who is the engine that makes everything go for Indiana. And so, despite the fact, as you said, Rick Carlisle, I think, is a guy who, from a coaching standpoint, he's going to get the most out of his team. He's not going to be married to, hey, we got to play this style or we got to do that. He's going to figure out ways to try to help this team win games. But I just think without the guy who has sort of been the linchpin of this whole thing, when you take that guy out of the mix, I just don't know what this team is. So I'm gonna go under on the Pacers as well.
All right. The Miami Heat over under is 37.5. Oh, Indiana's Miami's right there with Indiana for me. Like, I don't believe in Miami this year. I've talked year after year. I picked the Heat for the over with the Heat culture nonsense. I'm not a believer. I mean, Tyler Hero, Bam.
Injured, out 8 to 12 weeks.
Oh, Bam is?
No, Tyler Hero.
Oh, Hero? Oh, under. Give me this under. Hammer the under. Hammer the under. Now that you've told me that
36 and a half is the number. 36 and a half is the number. 37 and a half.
37.
Sorry. 37.
I'm
Got
hammering
it.
the under. I'm hammering the under.
I think you have to on this one. Again, when you just look at rosters, I mean, without Tyler Hero, it gets rough real fast trying to figure out how this team's going to score. So, are they going to start Davion Mitchell, who good defensive player, really seemed like he found a home in Miami,
Not
but
related to
not an
Donovan
offensive
Mitchell.
player.
Not related to Donovan. Not
Not
related to
related to
Donovan Mitchell.
not related. No, not related to Donovan Mitchell. Bam, who I would say regressed last year as an offensive player. Maybe that was an aberration, but he was not very good offensively, or at least not what they needed him to be, stepping up in the absence of Jimmy Butler. I don't know how this team scores. Now, they did pick up Norman Powell from the Clippers. Powell's going to be able to score. But is Andrew Wiggins an answer to a question? I don't think so. Inconsistent as he's been throughout his entire career, I don't think he moves the needle. Khalil Ware, their second-year guy from Indiana, I don't think he's ready in any way, shape, or form. Is Terry Rozier still alive, still viable as an NBA player? He probably had one of the biggest falls off a cliff from going to where he was averaging like 24 a game in Charlotte, and he got to Miami and suddenly he couldn't play basketball anymore. this team, I just don't know how this team. I don't know how they score. I can't really figure out how they're going to generate enough offense unless Nikola Jovic turns into Nikola Jokic. I don't see how this team is suddenly going to have a viable offense. And maybe because of Eric Spoelstra's coaching and heat culture and some intangibles, maybe that allows them to scrap their way to more wins. But I, I don't see this team winning 38 games. I just don't know how they score. To me, they're going to struggle. There's going to be a lot of the Heat are going to be involved in a lot of 92-90 rock fights that they're going to lose because they just don't have the scoring. So I'm going under on Miami. So we're in agreement there.
All right. Next up, the Milwaukee Bucks. 42.5 is the over-under, Mike. I'll let you go first.
This is over. I think if Giannis is healthy, I don't see any way that this team finishes. You said it's 42.5.
42.5, yep.
I just don't see any way that the Bucks go 42-40 if Giannis is healthy. And I know this team's roster is not good, but Giannis with this roster is going to take a lot of shots. He's going to have the ball in his hands a lot, and he's going to have to do a lot in order for this team to win. I could see Giannis putting up 35, 14, and 7 this year and getting his third MVP if he could somehow drag the Bucks into the top 4 of the East, which I don't think is completely out of the question despite the roster. It is when you look at it, the roster is kind of rough. You start looking around and you're like, who's Milwaukee's second best player? Is it Miles Turner? Is it Bobby Portis? Is it I don't even know who any more. I don't even know if there are any other candidates. Is it Cole Anthony? Is it Kuz? Like it's pretty grim when you look at who the second best player is, and yet I still feel like because of Giannis that he's going to make all these guys better in a way because of how defenses have to deal with Giannis and building the wall, and he's going to get guys open shots. And yeah, there's not a ton of great shooting on this team. They're relying heavily on our guy, Kevin Porter Jr., to provide some of the same spark that he provided at the end of the season last year when he actually was pretty good for the Bucks after they picked him up. But despite the fact that this roster is goofy and not very good, I just think Giannis, if he's healthy, he's got to be worth 43 wins. And if he gets hurt, this could be a way, 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 way under if for some reason Giannis misses a quarter of the season or more. But I'm going to bet on Giannis staying healthy and bet on this team to do better than people think. So I'm going over on the Bucks.
Yeah, I actually had them as my over too. I just feel like Giannis is too good. You know,
It's fair.
Giannis
It's
is
fair.
too
I mean,
good.
if he's healthy, they're going to win more than 42 games. I just don't see how they. I don't see how they don't.
Yeah.
When you have one of the four best players in the league, I don't see how. I just don't see how that's possible. But again, if he gets hurt, they could be way under. They could win. They could easily win 23 games if Giannis misses 3/4 of the season with an injury.
Yep. So, all right. Next up, we've got the New York Knicks, 53.5. I'm going to surprise you here, Mike.
Okay.
Maybe I'm not. I'm going over. I think they end up with a better record than the Cavs. That's where my headspace is right now. I think they're going to end with a better record than the Cavs in the regular season. So I just think the East is bad. The Knicks are going to want it more for whatever reason, whether it's good or bad. New coach. I just think things are going to change. Maybe, maybe the shot form is not going to be completely wacky for, I just think, I think this team is going to be better than the Cavs in the regular season. I don't think that they're better than the Cavs. I just think they're going to be better in the regular season because they're going to be playing to win more games. So I'm going over.
Okay. I think you make the right case probably for the over for the same reason I picked the Cavs over. I'll be surprised if they finish with a better regular season record than the Cavs, but I do think they're going to go over this 53.5 number. I don't trust a team that has Karl Anthony Towns as a major part of it, despite the fact that he had a really good regular season and he had an up and down postseason. But I would say for Karl Anthony Towns, mostly up. And yet at the same time, when push comes to shove, I would not want to rely on Karl Anthony Towns to be one of the most important players on my team. I would not feel good about that. And then you look at what they did in the offseason to sort of fortify their bench. They brought in Jordan Clarkson. We all know what he loves to do if you've listened to the podcast for any length of time. You know that Jordan Clarkson loves to shoot. And they signed Gershon Yabusele from Philly, from the French national team, who I think is going to be a good addition. Obviously, the bench plays much more of a factor for the Knicks this year than it has in recent years with Tibbs. Mike Brown is going to utilize his bench and shake some things up offensively, probably give teams some different looks, maybe than just exclusively the Brunson pick and roll over and over and over again. Try to be a little bit more creative and get a little bit more movement on the Knicks offense. There's talk that Josh Hart is going to move to the bench. Mitchell Robinson is going to start at the center spot, which slides Cat over to the 4, which who knows, may or may not happen. At some point, it's going to happen whether they start those guys together or not. That Robinson and Towns are going to spend time together on the floor, provided that Mitchell Robinson can stay healthy. I don't think this team has a better record than the Cavs. I do think that they will beat that 53.5. I do think Mike Brown will make a positive impact on this Knicks team. For me, it comes down to, I don't think you want to build your team around Karl Anthony Towns. And I know in this case, Brunson's their main guy and Towns is their number 2. I think I'd feel even better if you could slide him one more spot down to your 3rd best player. But I don't like a team in the playoffs that has a liability at point guard and a liability at center/power forward defensively like the New York Knicks have. So I'm going to say they're going to go over, but I know that it's going to be finals or bust for the Knicks the same way it is for the Cavs, but one of those two teams is going to be really, really disappointed in their fan bases, and it'll be interesting to see whether it's the Cavs or the Knicks or both of them. So I'm going under on the Knicks. I'm sorry, over on the Knicks.
Right.
Sorry, over.
Over on the Knicks. All right. The Orlando Magic, I'm going to let you go first. The over-under is 50.5.
So my first instinct when I hear that for Orlando is, wow, that's high. Are they going to win 50 games? But they've been very, very close the last 2 years. And obviously last year, Paolo missed a good stretch of time. Franz missed a pretty good stretch of time. So presuming that those two guys can stay healthy, they're going to continue to ascend. They are on the upswing of their careers. Franz, who knows if he's ever going to figure out his 3-point shooting and whether or not he can get that back to even league average, which would make a huge difference for Franz and the Magic. We'll see if he can get there. Paolo is going to continue to ascend as a number 1 option. People have mixed feelings on whether or not he can ever be a top 5 player in the league. He certainly has the size, the tools to be able to get there. He's had the ball in his hands a lot since he's been in Orlando. Clearly, when you look back at that draft and you think about Chet, Jabari, and Paolo, Paolo's clearly going to have a better career than Jabari Smith. Whether or not he has a better career than Chet probably is still up for debate, but I would bet that both teams, Orlando and Oklahoma City, probably are happy with the guy that they got and probably would choose the same player. But around the league, I think it's probably still the jury's still out on whether Paolo or Chet would have been the number one guy or will be the number one guy from that draft. But I do think Franz and Paolo give you a pretty solid duo from which to start your team. And then obviously they make the Desmond Bain trade in the offseason. You're combining Bain with Jalen Suggs, who came back from or who's coming back from the injury that knocked him out last year when he went out, Orlando kind of went into a nosedive. So with those four guys, you have a pretty solid nucleus of a good team. Obviously, Orlando's been very, very, very good defensively. Offensively is where they've struggled. I think that ultimately what's going to decide the ceiling of this team is can Franz and Paolo increase their efficiency as they ascend up the Eastern Conference standings and as they get a little bit older in their career? Can they continue to put up numbers but do it in a more efficient way that lifts their team to a higher level? I think the East is bad. I think Orlando to me is clearly the third best team in the Eastern Conference. And so I think that again, because the bottom of the East provides you with a whole bunch of garbage wins against bad teams, I think I'm going to go over. I'd probably pick Orlando to maybe win 51 or 52 games. So I'm going over on the top of the Eastern Conference after having gone under on a lot of the bottom.
I also went over. I think you're right. I think they're the third best team. I think they end up with 51, 52 wins. And obviously they're gonna have to figure out some of the switches like the Desmond Bain in the rotation and things like that. But I think they're just too good, and their coach is good. So I think they're gonna go over. All right. Lock of the century. The Philadelphia 76ers. Over under is 42.5. I'm hammering the under. I don't care what Joel Embiid looks like. I don't believe. I'm going under. I do not believe in them.
There's no way you can. Regardless of whatever you think of, even if you are the ultimate Philly optimist and you say, well, Embiid looks great, he's lost a bunch of weight. I think he's already declared himself out for the beginning of the season anyway. Paul George, who knows when he's going to ever play again. Maxey was subpar last year, got injured. Jared McCain, waiting for him to come back. VJ Edgecombe, people are excited about him and what he brings to the table in terms of being an athlete and maybe being able to play both ends of the floor. So you theoretically have a pretty nice backcourt rotation if you have McCain, if you have Maxey, and then you have Edgecombe. So much of this team, though, in terms of it winning a lot of games, is riding on Embiid and Paul George to be healthy. And there is no possible way that you could ever make a bet that those two guys are going to play 60 games each in a season. So we're talking in that case 75% of the games, which doesn't seem like a huge ask, but for these guys it has been. And even when they play, what are the chances that Joel Embiid is playing like the Joel Embiid who was an MVP 2 seasons ago? What are the chances that you get the all-around best version of Paul George coming off all these injuries? I don't see it. Even the most optimistic scenario of all those guys being healthy by midseason and building some chemistry and figuring it out, there's just no way you can buy into it after all that we've seen from the process through what's going on in the last couple of years with Embiid. I'm with you. I think it's an under, and I think even if this team were to be completely healthy for the entire season, I just don't know, even at this stage of their careers, if Paul George and Embiid are fully healthy, I don't know what they even have left in the tank. So to me, if you're betting the over here, you're wildly betting on the health of players who haven't been able to stay healthy. And you're also betting on two older guys to sort of slow their decline coming off major injuries. And I just don't see it. So under on the Philadelphia 76ers.
All right. Toronto, 39.5. Fishy to me. I mean, I know the East is bad. But tell me, like, what did Toronto do this offseason? Tell me.
This team makes no sense. So I guess not in the offseason, right? Or at the very beginning of the offseason, they picked up Brandon Ingram.
Okay.
They re-signed Jakob Poeltl. You already had Emmanuel Quickly, and you have Scotty Barnes. And why am I forgetting who's the other guy they got from the Knicks? Why am I drawing a blank?
Emmanuel quickly?
No, I already said Emmanuel. RJ Barrett. Sorry, RJ Barrett.
Oh,
So you had Barrett and Quickly come in. So this team, just to me, I just don't get. I don't get how it all fits together, because you're probably going to start Quickly, Barrett, Pirtle, Scotty Barnes, and why do I keep drawing a blank on all their guys that I already even said their name, and Brandon Ingram. Sorry. So Ingram, Barnes, Pirtle, Quickly, Barrett as a starting lineup. Like shooting, guys that have to have the ball in their hands. Is anyone in that group a catch and shoot guy? Like, really, the honest truth is RJ Barrett's probably at his best when he has the ball in his hands. Scotty Barnes probably at his best when has the ball in his hands. Brandon Ingram probably at his best when he has the ball in his hands. Emmanuel Quickly probably at his best when he has the ball in his hands. Well, that's four guys that need the ball, and I don't think any of them are elite as a playmaker, as somebody who's going to make other people better. Maybe in moments they can score and get to the rim and slash and maybe occasionally make a three. But to me, this team it's a goofy roster that I don't necessarily dislike any of those players if I had one of them. But when I have all four of those guys as my four most important people or my four starters, I just don't see how that fits together. And I think this is going to be a chemistry experiment all year long. And I don't know that they have the other pieces around these guys. Like, how much do you like Grady Dick? Do you like Ochai Agbaji? Do you like?
Hey, supposedly he grew 2 inches this offseason.
Well, there you go. I don't know. I just don't think that their main guys fit together, and I don't think that their depth is very good. And so the combination of those two things, I'm going to go under. I think it's a pretty hard under on Toronto for me.
Yeah, I am in the same boat. I said 35 wins, question mark.
Okay.
34 wins,
It's fair.
question mark.
It's fair.
So, all right, last but not least, the Wizards, the Almost Bullets of Washington. The over-under is not the lowest. It's 21.5. The Wizards have been bad for so many years, Mike. Like, when was the last Wizards team that was good? Like, LeBron era Wizards, right?
Oh, the Wall Beal,
John Wall, Bradley.
The Walt Beal Wizards, when they went toe to toe with the Celtics in that 7-game, the Funeral Series, which I think was like 2017, maybe. So, which doesn't seem that long ago, but
I'm saying the Wizards haven't been in contention though, legitimately, right?
Since 1979.
That team was not in contention.
79, you're talking contention.
But listen, 21.5 is another very low number, right? Like,
It's low. It's low.
it's low. I mean, I think here's the thing. When I'm talking about Detroit and who they're going to beat in the Western Conference, who can Washington beat in the Western Conference?
They're not winning many games in the Western Conference. I can tell you that much.
I mean,
they're not winning many.
I mean, Phoenix? Can they beat Phoenix?
Maybe at home. You give them a couple wins at home against some of the worst teams in the Western Conference. You get a couple schedule wins in there. I think the problem with Washington, Jay, is they have some young players that are probably going to be average to good NBA players. So Koulibaly, Keyshawn George, who got hurt last year, Trey Johnson, who they drafted, Alex Sarr.
None of those guys are exciting me, Mike. None of those
Right,
guys
that's what I'm saying. They picked up Cam Whitmore from the Rockets. I think those are 5 young players that are intriguing, that are interesting, that are going to maybe be good 4th, 5th starters on an NBA team. But none of those guys are future stars. None of those guys are cornerstone franchise players. And then you have Chris Middleton and CJ McCollum on this team who, if they're healthy, do those guys both start? Do you bring those guys both off the bench? If you're starting those 2 guys, Chris Middleton used to be a good defender. At his age and his current physical condition, I don't think he is probably a candidate for the all defensive team at this point. And CJ McCollum, even when he was in his prime, was not known as a defender. Let's just put it that way. Very good offensive player. So if you have those 2 guys out there, and then the rest of your roster is presumably going to be made up of some combination of those young guys that we just talked about who are still learning the ropes of NBA defense, you're not going to be able to put together a very credible defensive team if you are the Washington Wizards. And then you look at conversely on the offensive end, I don't know who's driving this train. I don't know how you generate great offense if you're the Wizards. I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know if I was picking between Brooklyn's roster and Washington's roster. I'm not sure which one. I'm not sure which one I would take over the other because both of them are at this point devoid of stars, or at least stars that we can see at this point. Maybe someone from that Nets draft class becomes much better than we thought, or maybe one of these Wizards guys gets in the gym and suddenly turns into something that nobody saw coming. But I think this team's going to be bad. But I do think that some of the bottom of this conference, these teams are going to be able to beat each other up and each win 50% of their games. And that's going to allow Washington to creep up to 22 or 23 wins. So I'm going over on the Wizards, despite the fact that it's a terrible roster that I have no idea. I know what they're doing. They're just, again, they're in that early stages of a rebuild where they're just trying to maintain flexibility and get as many bites at the draft apple as they can. But I think this is an over, despite the fact that Washington's going to be terrible.
Yeah, Mike, all those things you just said, I was originally going to say over. But then I'm like,
to go under.
This roster is terrible. Under.
The roster is terrible. Mike, it really is terrible. It's terrible.
It's terrible.
It's terrible.
It's really bad. Like who's doing it? Who's doing it? Like I mean, the corpse of Chris Middleton. Like honestly, like
how long is he going to stay healthy?
5 games. Like I don't know. So anyway, all right. So to recap, Mike. We agreed on a lot. Okay. We both took Atlanta under. Boston. We both took the over on Brooklyn. We both took the under on Chicago. We both took the under on Indiana and Miami. We both took the over on Milwaukee, New York, and Orlando. We both took the under on Philly and Toronto. The ones we disagree on, Washington, I took the under. I originally was going to say the over, but everything you laid out made me change my mind. So maybe that was a strategy move for you. Okay. I took the under on Detroit, and you took the over. And the same thing for Cleveland, the over, and I took the under. Charlotte, I took the over, you took the under. And then Boston, I took the over, and you took the under. So that's where we're at. I think next week we'll do the West.
Sounds like a plan.
All right.
We'll see how we did. We'll see how we did on these Eastern Conference over and unders. We'll see where we're at. Maybe there'll be some more news. Maybe Kevin Durant will sign an extension, or who knows what may happen between now and then. But we will save the Western Conference for next time, since how long did we go? I don't even know. I'm looking. We're over an hour, right?
Hour and 11 minutes.
All right, there we go. Perfect. All right. Well, let's leave it there. Thanks for checking out tonight's Eastern Conference over-unders on my very special retirement night. So thanks for listening. We really appreciate it. And to everyone out there, thanks for listening, and we will catch you on our next episode. Thanks.